The sun rose over the city, casting long shadows on the concrete jungle where Mark Reyes, a dedicated detective, navigated the familiar streets with a heavy heart. Mark was a veteran officer, known for his relentless pursuit of justice, but years on the force had left him jaded. His once bright idealism had dimmed, replaced by a hard-won cynicism. As he entered the precinct, the sounds of ringing phones and urgent chatter filled the air, but they felt distant to him. Mark's office was cluttered with case files and photographs, remnants of unresolved crimes that haunted him. Each file represented a victim whose story remained unfinished, and each photo was a reminder of the families left in despair. His partner, Lisa Cruz, was the polar opposite. Passionate, fearless, and with a fierce sense of justice, Lisa was a breath of fresh air amidst the chaos. She often pushed Mark to confront his emotional barriers, urging him to remember why he became a cop in the first place. One morning, as they prepared for the day, the precinct buzzed with news of a string of violent crimes that had gripped the city. Mark and Lisa were assigned to the case, and the tension between them was palpable. Lisa believed they could crack the case wide open, but Mark's instinct told him to tread carefully. He had seen how ambition could lead to downfall, especially in a world where corruption lurked in every shadow. The first lead came when they interviewed a witness, a distraught young woman who had narrowly escaped a kidnapping attempt. Her fear was contagious, and Mark felt a surge of protectiveness as she recounted her ordeal. The woman mentioned a name that sent a chill down Mark's spine: Jack Malone, a notorious mob boss known for his ruthless methods. The mention of Malone pulled at Mark's past, stirring memories he had tried to bury. He had crossed paths with Malone years ago, during a case that had nearly cost him everything. As they delved deeper into the investigation, Mark's haunted past began to resurface, threatening to unravel the fragile threads of his current life. Lisa, sensing his turmoil, urged him to confront his demons, but Mark was reluctant. The informant, a street-savvy hustler named Tony, met them in a dimly lit diner on the outskirts of town. The atmosphere was thick with tension as the clatter of dishes and muffled conversations created a backdrop for their discussion. Tony, played by a supporting character, was nervous but determined to share what he knew. He revealed that Malone was expanding his operations, branching into human trafficking. A horrifying revelation that sent shockwaves through both Mark and Lisa. As Tony spoke, Mark's instincts kicked in. He could see the fear in Tony's eyes and recognized the stakes of what they were discussing. Malone's empire was far-reaching, built on intimidation and violence, and Mark knew that any wrong move could lead to disastrous consequences. Lisa's anger simmered beneath the surface. She was determined to take Malone down, and her resolve fueled Mark's own. They learned that Malone had recently struck a deal with corrupt officials, which allowed him to operate with impunity. This revelation ignited a fire within Lisa, who believed they could expose the corruption if they worked methodically. Mark, however, felt the weight of the impending confrontation with Malone pressing down on him, and he struggled to balance his desire for justice with his fear of repeating past mistakes. As the investigation unfolded, Mark and Lisa uncovered a series of connections between Malone and several high-ranking officials. The more they dug, the more dangerous the situation became. Lisa discovered that one of Malone's recent victims was a friend from her childhood, intensifying her personal stake in the case. This connection pushed her to work harder, and she began to take risks that made Mark uneasy. The chapter closed with Mark and Lisa receiving a tip about a clandestine meeting between Malone and his associates. They decided to stake out the location, setting the stage for an explosive confrontation that could change everything. As they prepared for the operation, the tension between Mark's cautious nature and Lisa's fearless determination reached a breaking point. Under the cover of night, Mark and Lisa positioned themselves in a darkened alley overlooking Malone's meeting place, a rundown warehouse that reeked of desperation and danger. The air was thick with anticipation, and Mark felt the familiar adrenaline coursing through his veins. As they waited, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to cross a line that would change their lives forever. Through binoculars, they observed Malone and his henchmen engaging in a heated discussion. The flickering lights of the warehouse illuminated their tense faces, revealing the ruthlessness that defined Malone's world. Mark's heart raced as he saw Malone's grip tighten around a briefcase, money, perhaps, or something far worse. This was their chance to gather evidence, but it also felt like stepping into a lion's den. As they prepared to move in, Mark hesitated. His instincts screamed at him to wait, to gather more intelligence before making a move. But Lisa was already gearing up, her eyes ablaze with determination. She believed in taking action, and her passion ignited a fire within Mark, forcing him to confront his fears. They descended upon the warehouse, weapons drawn, hearts pounding. The moment they burst through the door, chaos erupted. Malone's henchmen sprang into action, and a violent shootout ensued. The air was filled with gunfire and shouts, and Mark found himself in the thick of the fray, instincts guiding him as he maneuvered through the chaos. In the heat of the battle, Mark and Lisa worked seamlessly together, relying on their training and their bond as partners. Just when it seemed they had the upper hand, Malone revealed himself, a menacing figure who radiated power and danger. He mocked them, a sly grin spreading across his face as he promised that this was just the beginning of their troubles. With adrenaline coursing through him, Mark faced Malone, the weight of his past choices crashing down upon him. Malone taunted him with memories of their previous encounter, playing on Mark's vulnerabilities. But rather than cowering, Mark found a renewed sense of purpose. He realized that confronting Malone wasn't just about the case, it was about reclaiming his life and fighting for those who couldn't fight for themselves. The chapter ended with Mark and Lisa barely escaping the warehouse, their lives hanging in the balance as they realized that the stakes were far higher than they had anticipated. Malone's threat loomed over them, and the hunt was only beginning. In the aftermath of their confrontation with Malone, Mark and Lisa found themselves in a safe house, their bodies bruised but spirits unbroken. The adrenaline rush had faded, leaving them with the stark reality of what lay ahead. The experience had deepened their bond, but it also highlighted the risks of their pursuit for justice. As they nursed their wounds, Mark reflected on the choices they had made and the path they were on. Word reached them that Malone was furious about the failed operation. The mob boss was not one to be trifled with, and Mark knew that they had crossed a line that would not go unnoticed. The tension in the air was palpable as they received an anonymous message, a chilling ultimatum from Malone, demanding they back off or face the consequences. The message sent shivers down Mark's spine. He had known the risks of confronting Malone, but the personal nature of the ultimatum hit him hard. Lisa, however, was fueled by anger and a sense of justice. She saw the ultimatum as a challenge, a call to arms. The two found themselves at a crossroads, grappling with their differing approaches. Mark wanted to strategize, to gather more evidence before proceeding, while Lisa urged for immediate action. As they debated their next steps, Lisa's personal connection to the case weighed heavily on her. She revealed to Mark that her childhood friend, who had fallen victim to Malone's empire, had left behind a family desperate for closure. This revelation reignited Lisa's determination and added urgency to their mission. Mark understood her pain, but he couldn't shake the fear that rushing in could lead to dire consequences. Driven by the ultimatum, they devised a plan to gather more information about Malone's operations. They decided to infiltrate a meeting of Malone's associates, hoping to catch a glimpse of their operations. As they prepared for the mission, Mark's doubts gnawed at him. He had faced Malone before, and he knew the danger that awaited them. But Lisa's resolve inspired him to push forward, and he began to believe that they could bring down the criminal empire that had haunted him for years. The stakes were at an all-time high, and they were about to face the wrath of Malone head-on. As they entered the lion's den, Mark and Lisa understood that they were not just fighting for justice, they were fighting for their lives. The atmosphere was electric as Mark and Lisa prepared for the showdown with Jack Malone. Their investigation had uncovered a secret meeting place where Malone was expected to finalize a crucial deal involving human trafficking, a deal that could solidify his power and deepen the suffering of countless victims. The stakes had never been higher, and the tension between them was palpable. As night descended, Mark and Lisa arrived at an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, the air thick with humidity and impending danger. This was the site of Malone's operation, and they had only one chance to dismantle it. Armed with information gathered from their investigation, they felt the weight of their responsibility pressing down on them. Mark glanced at Lisa, who was reviewing their plan. Her determination was evident, but so was the fear lurking beneath the surface. He reached out, placing a hand on her shoulder. "We've come too far to back down now. Remember why we're doing this?" She nodded, her expression steely. "For every victim, for every family he's destroyed. We can't let him win." As they approached the warehouse, they spotted Malone's men milling about, their muscular forms silhouetted against the dim light spilling from the building. Mark's instincts kicked in, and they decided to split up to cover more ground. Mark would take the east side, while Lisa would approach from the west, meeting back at the main entrance. The plan was risky, but both knew that time was of the essence. As Mark stealthily made his way around the perimeter, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The shadows seemed to shift, and his heart raced as he recalled the weight of the ultimatum they had received. Malone was not a man to be trifled with. He was known for his cruelty and cunning. Inside the warehouse, the atmosphere was tense. Malone, flanked by his most trusted henchmen, was negotiating with a group of shady businessmen. Their voices echoed through the cavernous space, punctuated by the sound of heavy footsteps and hushed whispers. Mark peered through a cracked window, his pulse quickening as he took in the scene. Suddenly, a noise echoed behind him, a faint scuffle that made his heart skip. He turned just in time to see a henchman trying to flank him. Without hesitation, Mark lunged forward, engaging in a fierce struggle. The two men tumbled to the ground, exchanging blows, the fight escalating in intensity. Mark fought with a sense of urgency, his adrenaline propelling him forward as he recalled the faces of the victims they were fighting for. Meanwhile, Lisa had encountered her own challenges. As she approached her designated entry point, she spotted several henchmen congregating, discussing their plans for the night. Quietly, she pulled out her phone and snapped a picture, knowing that any evidence could prove crucial later. Just then, one of the henchmen turned, and Lisa quickly ducked behind a stack of crates, her heart racing. The tension in the air was thick as she assessed her surroundings. She could hear the faint sounds of Mark's struggle from a distance. Gathering her courage, she moved towards the sound, determined to assist her partner. Back in the main area of the warehouse, the negotiations took a dark turn. Malone's booming voice reverberated through the space as he threatened the businessmen. "If you want to do business with me, you better understand that betrayal will not be tolerated." His eyes glinted with malice, and the men shifted nervously, aware of the power they were dealing with. Just then, Mark burst into the room, adrenaline fueling his every move. "Jack Malone! This ends tonight!" His voice rang out, echoing in the tense silence. All eyes turned toward him, surprise and hostility flooding the room. Malone's expression shifted from surprise to cold amusement. "Well, if it isn't the detective who thinks he can outsmart me. You should know by now, Reyes, that you're in over your head." Mark felt the weight of those words, but he refused to back down. "I'm here to bring you down, Malone. You won't get away with this." As tensions escalated, Lisa joined Mark, positioning herself strategically beside him. "We've got evidence, and we're not alone. The law will catch up with you." The determination in her voice strengthened Mark's resolve. The confrontation erupted into chaos. Malone's henchmen lunged forward, and Mark and Lisa fought with a fierce intensity, a choreography of skill and desperation. They moved in sync, their training shining through as they defended each other against multiple attackers. The warehouse transformed into a battleground, filled with shouts and the sounds of fists meeting flesh. Despite the odds, Mark and Lisa found a rhythm, their teamwork bolstering their spirits. They managed to take down several henchmen, but just as they thought they had the upper hand, Malone pulled a gun from his waistband, leveling it at them. "You think you can take me down? I've built an empire, and you're nothing but a blip on my radar." Mark's heart raced as he felt the weight of the moment. This was it, the confrontation he had feared for so long. "You're a monster, Malone. and monsters fall. With that, Lisa charged forward, using the distraction to her advantage. She tackled one of the henchmen, knocking him into Malone and causing the gun to fire harmlessly into the air. In the ensuing chaos, Mark seized the opportunity. He lunged forward, grappling with Malone, their struggle a clash of wills. As they fought, the weight of Mark's past decisions loomed large, but he focused on the present, channeling all his anger and determination into taking Malone down. The fight reached its climax as the two men fell to the ground, grappling for control. In a final, desperate maneuver, Mark overpowered Malone, pinning him down. "It's over," Mark breathed, the adrenaline coursing through him. Lisa stood nearby, catching her breath as they secured Malone. They had won this battle, but Mark knew that the war against corruption and violence was far from over. The chapter closed on a high note, with Mark and Lisa standing victorious, yet aware of the greater challenges that lay ahead. In the aftermath of the chaotic showdown, Mark and Lisa stood in the warehouse, catching their breath as they surveyed the scene around them. The remnants of the fierce battle lay scattered, fallen henchmen, overturned crates, and the palpable tension in the air. As the distant sound of sirens began to approach, a sense of victory washed over them, mingling with the weight of what had just transpired. Mark looked at Lisa, her face flushed from exertion and triumph. "We did it," he said, disbelief lacing his voice. "We actually took him down." Lisa nodded, a smile breaking through her earlier determination. "This is just the beginning. We have the evidence we need to bring down his entire operation." The resolve in her eyes mirrored Mark's newfound hope, igniting a fire within him that had been dormant for far too long. As the police arrived, led by their captain, the scene shifted from chaos to order. Officers swarmed the warehouse, apprehending the remaining henchmen and securing the area. Mark and Lisa were debriefed, their adrenaline slowly subsiding as they recounted the events. The captain praised their bravery, acknowledging the risks they had taken and the lives they had saved. However, amidst the accolades, Mark felt an ache in his heart. The victory came at a cost. He thought of the victims, the families who would now have to grapple with the aftermath of Malone's crimes. The faces of those who had suffered under his reign of terror haunted him, reminding him that the fight for justice was far from over. Later, as they left the warehouse, Lisa turned to Mark, her expression serious. "We need to do more than just celebrate. We need to ensure that this doesn't happen again. We can't let corruption fester in our department." Her determination resonated with Mark, igniting a shared purpose that transcended their recent victory. "Agreed," Mark replied. "We have to expose the connections we discovered. Malone's empire was built on more than just crime, it's interwoven with the very institutions meant to protect the public." They discussed their plan to gather evidence and expose the corrupt officials who had allowed Malone to operate with impunity. The chapter transitioned to their efforts to bring the truth to light. They collaborated with the Internal Affairs Division, compiling evidence and testimonies from witnesses. Mark's leadership emerged, fueled by a renewed sense of purpose, and Lisa stood by his side, her fiery spirit invigorating their cause. Together, they worked tirelessly to dismantle the web of corruption, their partnership strengthening as they fought for justice. As the investigation progressed, the challenges became more apparent. They faced resistance from within the department, encountering officers who were either complicit or fearful of the repercussions. Mark and Lisa navigated this treacherous landscape with determination, employing their skills to build a case that would hold up against the powerful adversaries they faced. Days turned into weeks as they gathered evidence, uncovered hidden connections, and built a coalition of allies who believed in their mission. The process was grueling, and the toll it took on them personally was undeniable. Late nights spent poring over documents, the constant threat of retaliation from those they sought to expose. It was a daunting path, but they persevered. Eventually, they reached a breaking point when they finally secured enough evidence to bring charges against several high-ranking officials involved in Malone's operation. The moment they received confirmation felt surreal, a culmination of their hard work and determination. Mark and Lisa stood together, their eyes reflecting the weight of what they had accomplished. Do you think we'll make a difference? Lisa asked, a flicker of vulnerability crossing her face. Mark placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. We already have. Every step we take, every truth we uncover, it matters. We're shining a light on the darkness. As the dust settled from the storm of their recent victories, Mark and Lisa found themselves at a pivotal crossroads in their lives. The revelations that had emerged from their investigation had not only dismantled Malone's empire, but had also exposed the deep-rooted corruption within their own department. Their commitment to justice had sparked a movement, igniting conversations about ethics and accountability in law enforcement. The aftermath of their work had transformed their lives. Mark, once a weary detective burdened by his past, had emerged as a leader, a symbol of hope for those who had been silenced. His experiences had forged a new sense of purpose within him. Lisa, too, had blossomed in her role, her passion for justice igniting a fire in others, inspiring them to take a stand against corruption. Together, they navigated the complexities of their new reality, attending town hall meetings and engaging with community leaders. They spoke passionately about the importance of transparency and integrity in law enforcement, advocating for reform that would protect citizens and restore trust. The community rallied around them, grateful for their courage and determination. As they worked to implement change, the bond between Mark and Lisa deepened. They had shared countless challenges and triumphs, each moment strengthening their connection. Their friendship evolved into something more profound, a partnership rooted in mutual respect and unwavering support. However, the road ahead was not without its challenges. Resistance lingered in the shadows, with those who had benefited from the corruption working to undermine their efforts. Anonymous threats and attempts to discredit them emerged, but Mark and Lisa remained undeterred. They knew that change required sacrifice and resilience, and they were prepared to face whatever obstacles lay ahead. One evening, as they prepared for a public forum to discuss their findings, Lisa glanced at Mark, a mixture of determination and vulnerability in her eyes. "Are you ready for this?" she asked, her voice steady yet laced with concern. Mark met her gaze, the weight of the moment palpable. "We have to be. The community deserves to know the truth. We owe it to every victim, every family affected by Malone's reign." With a shared sense of purpose, they took the stage at the forum, addressing a crowd of concerned citizens, fellow officers, and community leaders. Mark spoke passionately about the importance of accountability, emphasizing that the fight against corruption was a collective effort. Lisa followed, her fiery spirit igniting the crowd as she shared personal stories of victims and the impact of Malone's empire. The atmosphere was charged with emotion as they laid bare the systemic issues that had allowed such corruption to thrive. The audience responded with a wave of support, voices rising in unity as they demanded change. It was a moment of catharsis, a turning point for the community that had long felt powerless. As the forum concluded, the applause echoed in their ears, a resounding affirmation of their efforts. They stepped off the stage, exhilarated and exhausted, knowing that they had made a significant impact. In that moment, Mark turned to Lisa, a smile breaking through the exhaustion. "We did it. We brought them together." Lisa grinned, her eyes shining with pride. "This is just the beginning. We have a long way to go, but we're not alone anymore." In the following weeks, the momentum continued to build. Community initiatives sprang up, driven by a newfound desire for change. Mark and Lisa became beacons of hope, guiding their community toward a brighter future. They engaged with grassroots organizations, working collaboratively to create programs aimed at prevention, education, and support for victims of crime. However, even amidst the victories, Mark grappled with the shadows of his past. The faces of the victims haunted him, reminding him of the lives that had been irrevocably changed. During a quiet moment, he confided in Lisa, his voice heavy with emotion. "Sometimes I wonder if we're doing enough. There's so much pain out there." Lisa reached for his hand, her touch grounding him. "We're making a difference, Mark. Every step we take matters. We're fighting for those who can't fight for themselves." Their connection deepened as they navigated the complexities of their work and the emotional toll it took on them. They leaned on each other, finding solace in shared experiences and mutual understanding. As they continued their mission, Mark and Lisa recognized that the journey was far from over. The fight for justice was ongoing, and they were committed to facing every challenge head-on. They knew that the path ahead would be filled with obstacles, but they were ready to confront them together. With renewed determination, Mark and Lisa took a step forward into the future, one that was bright with possibility and promise, a testament to their unwavering commitment to justice. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to help my YouTube channel grow.